What's good, y'all? It's Mikey T, the movie star. I'm back with another Report Card Radio exclusive. Today, I'm going to continue reading from the 32-page federal indictment from OBH. Actually was just finishing with page 5, where we were introduced to the first confidential informant. We'll pick it up right there. But before we get into that, I would like everybody who's watching, as everyone's filling into the chat, I'd like everybody who's watching to follow me on Instagram. Everybody who follows me on Instagram, I'm going to follow you back ASAP. Mikey T _ the movie star. Mikey T _ the movie star on Instagram, and I'm going to follow everybody back that follows me based on this video. Today we're going to get started with the confidential informants. So let's take it back from here. Members of the DTO use their cellular telephones to coordinate with each other and those outside of the DTO, the drug trafficking organization, to acquire, transport, and distribute controlled substances through Philadelphia and the surrounding area. The individual hereafter identified as Buyer 1, whose identity is known to the grand jury, was a confidential informant working with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, posing as a citizen interested in buying narcotics. The individual hereafter identified as Buyer 2, whose identity is known to the grand jury, was a confidential informant working with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, posing as a private citizen interested in purchasing narcotics. Overacts. In furtherance of the conspiracy and to accomplish its objective, defendants Abdul West, Jamal Blanding, Jameel Hickson, Richard Chase Hoover, Dantes Stewart, Amir Boyer, Dale Baker, and Hans Gadsden, and others known and unknown to the grand jury, committed the following overt acts, among others, in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania and elsewhere. On or about March 22, 2017, members of the DTO rented apartment 219 at Edgewater Apartments at 2323 Ray Street using a false identification in the name of Tabitha Bishop for the purpose of conducting drug trafficking activities in a high-end apartment building to protect their narcotics and prevent detection from law enforcement. On or about May 1st, 2017 in Philadelphia, so this is over a month later, on or about May 1st, 2017 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, an undercover law enforcement officer, UC, undercover, met with the defendant Dantes Stewart in the area of 2000 Bridge Street, Philadelphia, who introduced himself as Taz Stewart. He sold the UC 2 vials of cocaine base crack in exchange for $20 U.S. currency and gave the UC the telephone number that ended with 3893 as a number where he could be reached. So this is where it all started. This is where the whole case stems from. It stems from Taz selling a $20 vial of drugs to an undercover agent. That's where this whole thing started from. OBH crumbled because Taz had to sell a 20. He made such a great connection selling that 20 that he had to give the guy who bought a 20 off of him his phone number. Hey man, you better hit me back again in case you want a 20. That's straight up pathetic. Selling a $20, I know I'm going to get a lot of comments where it's like, well, you need to sell 50 20s in order to make money. That's how you make money in this game, by selling 20s. So, and then we're going to continue on or about June 6th. So we go 35 days later. On or about June 6, 2017 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. 3. Buyer 1 placed a call to the defendant Stewart on the phone number ending in 3893 to arrange for the purchase of cocaine, crack. So this is actually where it's starting to get really interesting. All the information is coming out about Taz linking up with this guy who he sold a 20 to. So Buyer 1 traveled to 5200 Torresdale Avenue to meet the defendant Stewart and discuss the arrangements to purchase of a 1/4 ounce of crack cocaine. The defendant Stewart then drove to and entered the mansion where defendant Abdul West was also present. Defendant Stewart returned to buyer 1, where Stewart provided approximately 6.278 grams of cocaine base in exchange for $340 of U.S. currency. Wow, so Taz even shorted him on the quarter. Taz shorted him a 0.8. Now I'm not too familiar with how all of that works in the cocaine game, but I know if I got shorted a 0.8 of my bud, I would be tight. That's at least the L. That's at least the L gone right there. So I know you could at least get 100 off a G or some yay, you know what I mean? So that's like $100 gone right there. But right here in this statement, it actually says that the defendant Stewart then drove to and entered the mansion where the defendant Abdul West was also present. So they're saying that Abdul was at the scene when Taz actually went. Let's see in the next paragraph if they've got any interaction between Taz and Abdul West. That's going to be very interesting to me. So on or about June 22nd, 2017, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, buyer 1 placed a call to the defendant Stewart on the telephone number 3893 to arrange for the purchase of cocaine base. All right, now that's interesting. So now we've got this UC, we've got this undercover who went to the plug's house. I'm going to explain something to you guys right here. When you go to the plug's house, when your boy who you just bought a 20 off of brings you to the plug's house, you definitely get the plug's number. You always get the plug's number. So Taz bringing this guy to his house, Ab's there. Why wouldn't the guy have just made a connection with Ab? That's a major plot hole right here. Major plot hole. Because here we go. On or about June 22nd, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, buyer 1 placed a call to the defendant Stewart on the telephone number ending with 3893, the same number, to arrange for the purchase of cocaine. Buyer 1 met the defendant Stewart on 5200 block of Torresdale Avenue, where the buyer 1 showed the defendant Stewart 1,200 U.S. currency for the purchase of the crack cocaine. Stewart returned the money to buyer 1 and left to obtain the cocaine base. Defendant Abdul West drove from mansion to the area near 444 North 3rd Street, Philadelphia, where he provided the defendant Stewart with cocaine base, crack, to sell buyer 1. Defendant Stewart returned to the buyer and sold buyer approximately 24 grams of cocaine in exchange for $1,200 U.S. currency. So if we're doing math, he paid $340. He paid $340 for the 7 grams or the 6.2 and 24 grams. So you got 6, 12, 18, 24. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 12, 1360. All right, so he saved a little bit of money. He saved about $160 going down to $1,200, but that's irrelevant. On or about September 3rd, defendant Jamal Blanding coordinated picking up money for narcotics at the mansion from the defendant Hans Gadsden. On or about September 10th, 2017, defendants Jamal Blanding and Hans Gadsden used their cellular telephones to coordinate drug transactions. All right, and as we know, Jamal Blanding is Kaz, and Hans Gadsden is No Breaks Bras. So in September, they're getting back to those guys. Very interesting. They didn't have much more information there about Arab providing any of the product to Taz. So on or about September 10th, defendants Jamal Blanding and Hans Gadsden used their cellular telephones to coordinate a drug transaction. On or about September 10th, defendants Jamal Blanding and Abdul West coordinated defendant West collecting narcotics and or U.S. currency for payment of narcotics from a stored location at the mansion. On or about September 11th, 2017, defendants Abdul West, Jamal Blanding, Jamil Hickson, Richard Hoover, and Dantes Stewart, Amir Boyer, Hans Gadsden, Daryl Baker, and Dennis Harmon maintained a stash house at the mansion, which included $8,101 of U.S. currency, a .45 caliber firearm, and possessed with intent to distribute approximately 62 grams. they possessed with intent to distribute approximately 62 grams of a mixture and substance containing a detectable amount of cocaine base, approximately 229 grams of a mixture and substance containing a detectable amount of heroin, and approximately 48 grams of a mixture and substance containing a detectable amount of methamphetamine. 14. On or about September 12th, 2017, defendant Jamal Blanding used his cellular telephone to update defendant Amir Boyer and other members of the DTO regarding the status of the mansion that had been searched by law enforcement on September 11th. So the next day, on September 11th, 2017, defendant Hoover went to the mansion and used his cellular telephone to communicate with Blandon about the status of the drugs and the currency that had been stored at the mansion. On or about September 28th, 2017, so this is a little bit later, a couple weeks later, defendant Blandon coordinated the collection of narcotics and or U.S. currency for payments of narcotics from defendant Jamil Hickson at 1 Brown Street, Philadelphia, and then coordinated with defendant Amir Boyer to meet defendant Blandon on his return on or about October 19th, 2017 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So then we go here. Buyer 1 contacted defendant Stewart by phone calls and text messages to his phone number to arrange for the sale of the cocaine base, methamphetamine, and a firearm. Buyer 1 met defendant Stewart at the Dunkin' Donuts at 6391 Oxford Avenue, Philadelphia, where Stewart provided Buyer 1 with approximately 6.8 grams of crystal methamphetamine in exchange for $200 U.S. currency. All right, so when we're dealing with crack cocaine, when he was getting a 7 or 6.2, he paid $340. Now when we're dealing with crystal methamphetamine, he's paying $200 for a quarter. So that just gives you a balance of crack cocaine, 7 grams, $340. That's 2 8-balls, 7 grams. And then you got 7 grams of methamphetamine, $200. That's a $140 difference. Later that afternoon, Stewart again met with Buyer 1 at Dunkin' Donuts at 6391 Oxford Avenue, Philadelphia, where the defendant Stewart sold Buyer 1 cocaine that was provided by defendant Abdul West in a .25 caliber Phoenix Arms model HP-25A firearm bearing serial number 4400590 in exchange for $14.50 U.S. currency for the crack cocaine base and $450 U.S. currency for the firearm. Very interesting right there. So now the informant, the confidential informant, the buyer, hit up Taz to buy a firearm. He hit him up to buy a piece. Taz was able to provide that piece to him, yet they're blaming ARAB. It doesn't seem to me like ARAB went to somebody and said, hey, do you want to buy a firearm? It seems to me like Taz was trying to use this guy he met, this lick. Taz met a lick. That's what this was considered. But Taz made 3 or 4 sales to a confidential informant, a trained buyer. So once you make 3 or 4 sales, you usually end up getting arrested. That's right. Taz was using this. Taz was doing this by any means to make as much money as he could. Like I said, this was a lick for Taz. Unfortunately, this lick came with federal consequences. So as I said, later that afternoon, they met up in exchange for $14.50 U.S. currency for the crack cocaine. On or about October 21st, the defendants West and Blandon communicated via cellular telephone to discuss the quantity, quality, and sources of the drugs used in their drug trafficking. On or about October 31st, Halloween, this happened on Halloween, on or about October 31st, 2017, the defendant Blandon coordinated by cellular telephone to bring U.S. currency for narcotics trafficking to defendant West at the lounge. On or about November 2nd, 2017, defendant Hoover drove his Volvo truck tractor from Philadelphia, headed west towards Los Angeles, California. On or about November 9th, 2017, defendant Blandon uses his cellular telephone to request an amount of narcotics from the defendant West, who agrees to provide it to him that day. On or about November 12th, 2017, defendant Hickson traveled from the Philadelphia International Airport to Los Angeles International Airport. On or about November 14th, 2017, defendant Blandon traveled from Philadelphia International Airport to Los Angeles, where he was met by the defendant Hickson. Defendant Blandon also sent a message to defendant Hoover advising the defendant Hoover of defendant Blandon's travel arrangements and making arrangements to meet. On or about November 15th, 2017, defendant Hoover, Hickson, and Blandon used their cellular telephones to coordinate meeting while in Los Angeles. Defendant Blandon also contacted defendant Baker to inform the defendant Baker that defendant Blandon, Hickson, and Hoover are in Los Angeles. So Baker is, everybody knows that Baker is Daryl Baker, Shoddy, the one who Taz alleged was with Ab when they had that meeting at the car. Yeah, so on or about November 15th, defendant Hoover, Hickson, and Blandon used their cellular telephones to coordinate meeting while in Los Angeles. Defendant Blandon also contacted defendant Baker to inform defendant Baker that defendants Blandon, Hickson, and Hoover are in Los Angeles. On or about November 16th, 2017, defendant Hoover departed the Los Angeles area with narcotics in his Volvo truck tractor for himself and members of the DTO. Defendant Blandon communicated by cell phone with defendant Abdul West to coordinate delivery of the packages of narcotics from Los Angeles, California to Philadelphia. So they're on these guys. They are on them like they was on Rollo, flying them that marijuana from California to Atlanta, allegedly. But Rollo's about to come home from that ASAP. You know, he's been locked up for a few years now. So they were on the men. They was tracking these guys. I find it interesting that Ab wasn't out there with them in California at this point. I find it interesting that, to me, they really don't have much connecting Ab at this point, aside from a couple text messages with Ab probably replying to these guys like, yeah, sturdy. That's sturdy. You're out in California. That's sturdy. You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to blame Ab just for acknowledging that somebody's in California at the time? On or about November 20th, 2017, defendant Hoover returned in his Volvo truck tractor to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where he unloaded narcotics from his Volvo truck tractor into his Chevrolet Trailblazer SUV and proceeded to deliver them to Jamil Hickson at 1 Brown Street, Philadelphia. On or about November 21st, defendant Hads Gadsden used his cellular telephone to communicate with defendant Abdul West about the status of their drug trafficking on the date. On or about November 27, 2017, defendants Gadsden and West used their cellular telephones to discuss the status of their drug trafficking on that date. On or about November 29th, 2017, defendants West and Baker discussed the status of their current and future planned drug trafficking activities and DTO operations. Started out for a year, then turned into a career. One of the lyrics that Ab said on his record, but you know what, man? They brought the lyrical analyst in for the trial to disprove that all of the lyrics used were, these are, you know, modern storytelling methods using these lyrics in these songs. And the fact that the jury and the judge all discredited what this lyrical analyst had to say, like, that's discouraging for where hip-hop is as a culture right now, to where they're not going to acknowledge that artists are actually writing lyrics from experiences that other people are going through. So other people out there that are listening to music from A.R.Ab and Dark Low, they don't have to go through those same experiences when they hear about people having shootouts and people serving people, like, and brothers and mothers dying before the time when they should have really passed, you know? Like, it gives people an opportunity to change the future that they could have had. But all right, guys, stay tuned. Stay tuned for the next exclusive, everybody. I'm gonna keep going further with this 32-page indictment. I respect everybody for tuning in. Everybody, hit me up on the gram, Mikey T _ the movie star. Follow me on Instagram. I'm gonna follow you back. Salute.